Chapter 12, the spread of civs in East and Southeast Asia. How did China's cultural develop and influence its neighbors in East and Southeast Asia? So again, be focusing on how China's culture developed through these different sections. And then as we get into Korea and Japan and the rest of Southeast Asia, how are they influenced by, so again, that cultural diffusion. So the section 1, two golden ages, the Tang and the Song. So how the Tang unified, how the Song grew rich, how China created an ordered society, and cultural achievements. And some of these things are things that we've already talked about in the past, going way back when. So key terms: compelled, land reform, gentry, dowry, and this is an example of a pagoda. So if we look at the Tang dynasty, after the last time that we talked about China, China has been taken over by warlords. So they have 400 years of not being truly united. Throughout this time, they conquered much of Central Asia, and so you can see the Tang dynasty in that map. When you look at what the Tang did after they conquered this land, or how they reunify it, is they go back to the old Han system of government. They give civil service exams, and they set up Confucian schools to train people to pass those civil service exams. The other thing they did is they broke up large farms. So small-time farmers had been run out of business, and these family farms were gone, and you got these big, huge farms, and you had a handful of people who had everything, and most people who had nothing. And so what the Tang did is they broke those large farms up, and they redistributed the land and gave it to the poor peasants. A nice little side advantage of this is now you've just increased the number of people capable of paying taxes tremendously, so you have a much bigger tax base. But just like these other civilizations that we've talked about, over time, corruption kicks in, they have to pay, or they start charging high taxes, there's natural disasters, and those three things come together and kind of topple the Tang. So the Song replaced them. They're going to expand the economy. Because of this open border that they have with Southeast Asia, they bring in a new kind of rice that grows much faster. And this improvement in farming means that not only do they have more rice because it grows faster, but they also get a dual planting system, and that's really going to help. The other thing is you see this Grand Canal. A canal was originally built to connect these two rivers. What the Song do is then they expand the canal to connect Hangzhou and Beijing. And this is what that Grand Canal looks like today. So you kind of have a visual to go along with what this looks like. And they use this to link rivers and ship grains to the north. With the Tang and the Song, it's hard to know exactly when these things are exactly invented, but we know that more than likely both of these groups are using these technologies. You've got gunpowder. The other thing they create is a mechanical clock to keep track of time. Movable type. Again, the awesome thing about movable type is you set it up, you put ink on it, you print a page, and you keep printing that till the ink starts to wear out. You put more ink on it, and you can print thousands of pages. Then what you do is you reset the type, you put your next page together, and you do it all over again. It's going to revolutionize printing. So if we look at China's ordered society, the gentry are this wealthy landowning class. They have a couple of things that make them value education. One is they can afford to spend the time and the money on this education. And what it does is it gives their kids a chance to get a job in the government, which is going to be the next step up in the social pyramid. Peasants, the vast majority of people are peasants. They work the land. The other thing is because China is so big, most of the disputes are settled locally by village leaders. China has a little bit different view of merchants than some other places. So for example, when we talked about the Islamic civilization, because Muhammad was a merchant, they were extremely high up in the social pyramid. The Chinese have a different view. They tend to think that merchants are living off of the work of others and benefiting from the work of others, and therefore they're lower than the peasants. When we look at women in this time, many civilizations, or at least most of the world civilizations, had dowries. And dowries cause a lower status for women because if a family has a family full of girls, then they have to provide a dowry for each of their daughters as they go off to get married. Um, that's a tough financial burden, and that's going to cause this lower status to kind of get reinforced. The other thing that you see is during this time, foot binding becomes fashionable. And right now in the history of the world, the last generation of foot-bound women is in their 80s, their 90s, their hundreds. And so there's been an effort to document this so that we realize the impact that sometimes our standards of beauty have on different groups of people. So when we look at the Tang and the Song and the rich culture, when you look at artists, they tend to have naturescapes, landscapes. They like balance, they like harmony. When you look at architecture, there's a lot of Buddhist themes. Pagodas dominate. When you look at porcelain and chinaware, this would actually be from the Ming Dynasty because it's the blue and the white porcelain. So each dynasty kind of developed their own unique form of porcelain, or at least how they painted it and decorated it. But they become world famous for this. And when we look at Chinese writing and literature, poetry is by far the most respected form, and so that tends to be what we have most of. Not that they don't have some novels and those types of things, but the vast majority of the writing is going to be poetry.